When his time of service was complete, Zechariah returned home. After this, his wife Elizabeth became pregnant, and for 5 months remained in seclusion. "The Lord has done this for me," she said. "In these days he has shown his favor and taken away my disgrace among the people." Welcome to part 3. If you've been tracking with us, you know that we're looking at Bible stories where characters go through prolonged periods of isolation, and we're pulling from those stories things we can learn for our own stories of isolation. So rewind to last Tuesday when we met Elijah, afraid, angry, and alone in a cave in the middle of the desert. Fast forward to last Friday when we met Jonah, alone in the belly of a fish for 3 days, and we see God step into those moments, into those stories of isolation. Today we meet Elizabeth. So if you're just joining us, hit pause on this, go back, watch parts 1 and 2, and then we'll dive into Elizabeth's story and her time in seclusion together. Now here's the setup. Elizabeth had a husband named Zechariah. He was a high priest. Zechariah had just returned home from performing his duties at the temple in Jerusalem. And while he was at the temple, an angel appeared and said, "Zechariah, you and Elizabeth, you're going to be pregnant. You guys are going to have a kid." Zechariah responds with, "Oh, that's crazy. First of all, we're both super old. Second of all, Elizabeth's barren." And because of his doubt and lack of faith, the angel takes away Zechariah's voice. He makes him mute. So Zechariah returns home, unable to speak, unable to talk. And then we learn that Elizabeth becomes pregnant. Fellas, probably not a coincidence. And that's the setup. Elizabeth then goes into 5 months of seclusion. Now, much of Elizabeth's story echoes Old Testament narrative. Sarah, Abraham's wife, becomes pregnant in her old age after a lifetime of barrenness. Rachel, when she becomes pregnant, she exclaims almost word for word what Elizabeth says, "The Lord has removed my disgrace." But the seclusion, that's unique. That's different. And there wasn't a cultural expectation either that women would go into seclusion during their early months of pregnancy. And you can check out all of the Bible commentaries that you can find, or save yourself the pain. I've read through a bunch of them, and you'll find the same story. This seclusion is something of a mystery. So here's where I think it's so valuable that we identify with these characters, that we explore what they might have been thinking, feeling, that we put ourselves in their place, in their shoes, that we begin to find our story in God's story. In the time and place when Elizabeth lived, as wrong as it was, women's primary worth and value was found in being a wife. In Elizabeth's specific case, she was the wife of a high priest whose line needed to continue through his sons. So begin to imagine how Elizabeth felt after a marriage, after a lifetime of not being able to produce a son that would continue the line of high priests. And then imagine how Elizabeth might be feeling after those initial moments, realizing that maybe, against all odds, against all probability, maybe, just maybe, she was pregnant and her entire life is about to change. So she removes herself and goes into seclusion until she knows she can come out and it is perfectly clear that she is pregnant. and the disgrace that accompanied her before is no longer there. So here's where I want us to be with this story and find ourselves as a UCC Medfield family. What are those things for each of us where we say that's a sore spot, that is an area of me that needs to be remade, it needs to be redeemed. There is nothing that God cannot make new. Maybe you want your kids to see you as a different kind of mom, a different kind of dad. Maybe you want to be different with your spouse. Maybe it's when you walk back into that office setting, that work context, people can see the person who's walking in is not the same person who walked out when all of this started. When the world sees me again, will I be different? Will I be able to say, I am a new person? What about me has changed? What about me can I say, God has shown me his favor. God has removed my disgrace. Let's do that together, UCC family. I'm so excited about this little mini single take series, and I can't wait to see you all on Friday.